Hi, so we had the Asian American population, and this is by Melanie, Gabby, and Siobhan. Correct me if I said anyone's name wrong. Our first slide is percent of population in subgroups.
Okay, so for the percent of populations for the whole United States, there's around 25 million people, which makes up around 7% of the US population. And then in the state of South Dakota, there's around 13,476 people. And then for the local, like the two biggest cities, for Sioux Falls, it makes up for Asian Americans, it's 1.6%. And then for Rapid City, it's 1.3%. And then there are many different subgroups, but we just did the top five. So for Chinese, they make up around 22% of the population. The Indian Asians make up around 21%. Filipino is around 19%, and then the Vietnamese is 9%, and Korean is around 8%. For the geographic dispersion, on the map to the left, you can kind of see like the darker areas is where it's more populated. And then five states make up around almost 80% of the whole Asian population. So California has the largest population. It's around 7.1 million people. And then Texas and New York have around 2 million. New Jersey has about a million, and Washington's just under a million. And then Hawaii is the only state where the majority of the population is Asian. For the languages, so there's around 37% that if you're 5 and older speak English, and then the other 63% will speak another language at home other than English. And some of those languages, like the most popular languages, are Chinese, Filipino, Vietnamese, Korean, and Hindi. And then around three-fourths of the US ages 5 and older are proficient in English. For education, so there's around 56% that actually have a bachelor's degree for the ages of 25 and over. There's around 57% US born that have at least one degree, and then 56% that are immigrants that have at least one degree. They do have a higher rate than the national average of like the US born and the US immigrants. And then around 86% of Asian Americans completed their high school education. So for the economics, the median annual household income is around 105,000. Unemployment is only around 3%. And then the top three occupations are in management, business, and financial. That's number one. And then number two is computer engineering and science. And then for number three, education, community service, and legal.
For the history and origins, Asian immigration began in 1800s for labor, such as railroads and farms. They faced exclusion laws and racism, which caused early activism. It started because it was inspired by the civil rights movement and opposition to the Vietnam War. Americans spoke out against unfair Asian Americans spoke out against unfair treatment and how the US was acting in other countries, especially in Asia, and the stereotype that all Asians are quiet and successful and don't need help. And then some key events. In 1968 until 1969, Asian American students joined protests at San Francisco State and UC Berkeley to demand classes about their own history and culture. These led to the first ethnic studies programs in the US. At that same time, Asian Americans protested the Vietnam War and organized in neighborhoods like Little Tokyo and Manila Town to stop people from being pushed out of their homes. Some important leaders are Grace Lee Boggs. She's an activist who worked for civil rights, workers' rights, and Black Asian solidarity. Nobuko Miyamoto, a singer and performer who used art to celebrate Asian American identity and inspire social change. Larry, a Filipino American labor leader who helped organize farm workers and fought for better pay and working conditions. Edison, a Japanese American who pushed for ethnic studies in schools and spoke out about the injustice of Japanese American incarceration. And then they focused on ethnic pride, tenant rights, youth programs, and cross racial solidarity with Black, Chicano, and Native movements.
So, for health, there's a large population of Asian Americans that are underinsured. The cultures often face language barriers and a cultural barrier, making it harder to obtain insurance. Chinese, 12% are underinsured. Indian, 11% are uninsured. Filipino, you have 10% that are uninsured. And Vietnamese, you have 11%. Korean, you have 21%. The life expectancy and leading cause of death. The overall life expectancy is 84 years of age, with the Chinese population being the highest at 91, and the lowest being Indian population at 74 years of age. The leading health conditions are diabetes, cardiovascular health, and hypertension for all three, or for all of the populations. The three leading causes of death are stroke, heart disease, and cancer for all. Health, we have the maternal mortality rate and teen pregnancy rate. Maternal mortality rate is lower in Asian American population versus others. 14 out of 1,000 births result in death. The teen pregnancy rate is significantly lower in Asian American populations than others. The Chinese is 0.5, Indian is 0.5, Filipino is 1.1, Korean is 0.1, and Vietnamese is 0.5. Just some additional information regarding the Asian population and health. The Chinese population is overall the healthiest, while the Indian population is the least. Many environmental factors contribute to Asian American health, such as city pollution, clean drinking water, and access to healthy, clean food.
So, and some cultural fun facts. The Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is in May to honor two important events: the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants to the U.S., which was in May 7th, 1843, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, which was in May 10th, 1869, built largely by Chinese workers. There are over 24 million Asian Americans in the U.S., about 7% of the total population. And then more than 650,000 U.S. businesses are Asian owned. That's about 1 in every 10 businesses. Hawaii has the highest percentage of Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, making up 27.1% of the state's population. Asian Americans are the most highly educated group in the U.S. Over 56 of Asian adults 25 plus have at least a bachelor's degree. And then this just shows that Chinese Americans are the most common Asian Americans in the ethnic group. And then in this slide is just a video showing the history of Asian Americans, which you guys can click on that whenever you guys get the chance to. And then in the next two slides, we have our references.
Yep,
And
and
yeah, that's it.
that concludes our presentation. Thank you, everybody.